All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Next on the Power. So I've got a couple interesting stories for you guys today. The first story is about Larry Wheels. So as you guys may or may not know, Larry Wheels is currently in Iceland training with Hafthor Bjornsson the Mountain, preparing him to compete in his very first ever strongman competition. So Larry, as we know, has crossed over from powerlifting to bodybuilding, back to powerlifting, and now over to strongman. And we've been seeing for the past couple weeks all kinds of cool training videos of Larry and Hafthor together. And Larry says in the captions of these photos and videos that he's going to be there for 8 weeks. And he got there in the beginning of January. So 8 weeks would put him there pretty much through February. I'm assuming he intends to be back for the Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio, which starts the very last day of February, actually, February 28th. So in a recent video, they actually announced what their plan would be going forward into introducing Larry into competitive strongman competition. So I'm going to roll that clip for you guys right here.
Guys, here in Iceland, Reykjavik at Thor's Power Gym with the world's strongest man. And so just want to make it quick. We've been talking about me getting to strongman, and the first step would be me competing at the LA Fit. What exactly is that show called?
I've heard that there's a competition in LA Fitness, and so our plan right now is to make you compete there and qualify for the Arnold Classic Amateur in Ohio. So if you win that show, which we're going to aim for, you'll qualify for the Ohio one, Amateur. And that's a huge step, and it's going to be a huge opener for you. If you do well there, it's going to help you put your name more out there in the summer world for sure. So that's our goal.
Awesome. And then, so the training you see from me and Thor for the next 8 weeks will be me doing my best to train for those events at these next 2 shows. More specifically for the one in Ohio, because I hear from Thor that even though it's called the amateur show, it's very competitive. It's very difficult to win.
It is high standard for sure, and the guys that compete there are definitely good. So we want to, you have the strength, but we want to focus on the technique and make you a good strongman. The LA Fitness show isn't as hard as the Ohio one. We'll train for both, but with the mind in, aiming more for the Ohio one. We don't want to sound cocky here. I believe in you, and I believe that you're gonna do well in the LA Fitness, and if you win that one, you go to the Ohio one.
Now, assuming they're talking about this year, I think that's a pretty insane plan. Insane in a good way. I just think they're moving pretty quickly with it. So basically what they say in this video is their intention is to have Larry compete at this LA Fit Expo amateur strongman competition, and whoever wins this competition is then qualified to compete in the Arnold Classic amateur strongman competition, which is actually a pretty big deal and a pretty big strongman competition if you're an amateur. They hold it in the expo hall, and I was actually watching it last year for maybe half an hour to an hour, just standing there watching all the different events because it runs like all day at the Arnold Classic. But the crazy thing about that is the LA Fit Expo is the last weekend of January. I think it's under 3 weeks away from the date that they posted this video announcing that they intended to have Larry compete there. So I'm assuming because of the timing of that video, they're talking about this year. The fact that they would mention the LA Fit Expo right before the LA Fit Expo suggests to me they're talking about now, this year's LA Fit Expo. But they could be talking about next year, and it could be a long-term plan. But to me, Larry seems like the type of guy to just jump straight into something and not take a whole year to train for powerlifting and wait until next year. I think this is something they're doing right now. So it sounded to me, based on the conversation between Larry and Hafthor, that it probably sounds like a pretty easy competition to win. To be honest with you guys, I didn't even know there was an LA Fit Expo strongman competition. So it's probably a relatively easy one. So it might not be that crazy for Larry Wheels to just jump in it after only training for a few weeks specifically for strongman. It's probably really not that big of a competition. And Hafthor sounded pretty confident that Larry would be able to qualify there for this Arnold Classic show. And I think one of the key things to remember that's really important in this equation here is that while Strongman obviously is heavily reliant on strength, the strength that Larry Wheels clearly has, it's also heavily reliant on technique. Technique is a very big part of Strongman. So the main question is going to be, is this short amount of time, 3 weeks or a month or however long Larry has been there with Hafthor, a long enough amount of time to teach Larry the technique that he's going to need to win an amateur strongman competition? That's really what it's going to come down to. And it's also going to come down to, if that wasn't enough time to really nail the technique, is Larry so strong that he can have kind of a half-assed technique, for lack of a better term, and still be able to come in and win that amateur show just because he's so damn strong? So that's what I'm most excited to see in this whole thing, is really how this powerlifting background is going to translate over to strongman when we know how heavily important the actual technique in strongman is. And there's things in strongman where it requires a bigger frame, such as lifting these Atlas stones. And then there's events like the log press, which require a great deal of technique. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Larry Wheels translates into this. Personally, I think based on the confidence level that both of them seem to have about this LA Fit Expo strongman competition, it probably seems like it's not going to be that big of a deal to win that. So I would say that's probably something that's going to be an easy win for him. But then when it comes to the actual Arnold Classic Amateur, which is a pretty big event, something that actually Braun Strowman, the WWE superstar, when he was in strongman, he competed in that. So it's a really big event. I think Larry Wheels' goal there should just be to place well. I don't think people should go into this expecting that Larry Wheels is going to win his first ever Arnold Classic Strongman, and I believe the winner of that becomes a professional strongman, which would be really almost unbelievable if Larry just trained for a simple 8 weeks and goes on to win that Arnold Classic Amateur and become a pro strongman. That would be insane. But then again, if we're talking about next year, which I don't think we are, that could be a completely different story if Larry Wheels actually takes this very, very seriously, and for the next year, after learning the techniques that Hafthor has taught him, just focuses for the next entire year on strongman. That could be pretty interesting. But only time will tell, so let me know in the comment section below what you guys think and how you think Larry Wheels' strength will translate into an actual strongman competition. All right, so the next story I have for you guys is Lee Priest. And again, the topic of whether or not Lee Priest is going to make a comeback at some point has come up. So this has come up several times in the past, and one of the main reasons why people said it would never happen was because of this injury that Lee Priest had, and he needed an operation. And I believe it was a nerve-related injury that was preventing him from training, I think, one side of his body the same way as the other side. So before he could ever think about making a comeback, the first thing he would need to do is get this issue fixed. And he says in this post here, "I'm thinking comeback if I get operation and it works this time." Then he goes on to say, "Visit my new website and try PharmaTrax." And then just a few days later, he was doing a Q&A on his Instagram story. And one of the questions that someone asked him, he said, "Would you ever come back?" And in that Q&A, he said, "It's possible." And then he basically said, again, it's kind of dependent on the outcome of that operation and if he's able to have that operation to fix that problem. So when people ask me what I think, I mean, I think anything is possible, really. But I've learned when it comes to a bodybuilding comeback, the best approach is just to be cautiously optimistic. I'm a big fan of Lee Priest, so I would obviously hope for the best if he does make a comeback. He's really not that old. He's only 46 years old. He's got plenty of time. If he did want to make a comeback, he's still 3 years younger than Dexter the Blade Jackson. So I don't think it's impossible by any stretch of the imagination. I think it would actually be really, really cool. Now, another big point of contention that I see a lot of commenters make in the comment section about a possible Lee Priest comeback is how will his tattoos impact his placing? And that's really an interesting subject of discussion, and it's really up for debate because Lee Priest, the last time we saw him on a bodybuilding stage, he had the majority of his tattoos. Now, he did leave the IFBB in 2006, but he would come back to NABBA in 2013 and win the NABBA Mr. Universe. So it should go without saying that NABBA is obviously not the IFBB, but they still have very high bodybuilding standards. This is still a professional bodybuilding organization. So you would think if tattoos were going to hurt Lee Priest to some wild extent, that it would knock him down multiple placings, it would still happen regardless of where he competed, whether it was NABBA or the IFBB. And back in 2013, that did not happen. He still won the biggest title that you could win in NABBA, the Mr. Universe. Now, this last story I have for you guys I think is absolutely hilarious, and I might actually go to cover this because I think it's that big of a deal. Hornswoggle is set to have a one-on-one wrestling match with Scott Steiner the same weekend as the 2018 WrestleMania. It's an AIW wrestling show, and it is being billed appropriately as the David and Goliath match of the century. The 6'1", 276-pound Big Papa Pump will be going head-to-head with the 4'5", 142-pound Hornswoggle. Something that we never got to see during either of their time in the WWE was them go head-to-head. And to be honest with you guys, I think this is amazing. I mean, when I saw this promo, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a meme. But when I learned this was an actual, real headlining wrestling event, it made me want to buy tickets and go see it. It's in New Jersey, which is kind of far from me, but I'd be willing to go watch this, man. I would love to get a video of this match and post it up on the channel. I mean, this is going to be epic. Not to mention the fact that the pay-per-view is called the Slumber Party Massacre, and you're having Hornswoggle versus Scott Steiner as the main event. I mean, this is just fantastic. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I also wanted to say, just once again, rest in peace to Officer Dale Woods, and our thoughts and prayers are with your family. Thank you guys for watching the video. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.